So Geraint Thomas leading the opinion polls to the extent that you can trust opinion polls as the race heads into the Pyrenees. Although today takes a fair bit of time actually getting there. At 218 kilometres, it's the second longest stage of the race, and the proper climbing doesn't start until the Col de Porte d'Aspet after 150. That's followed by the Col de Monte and the Col de Portillon, from the top of which there's a 10-kilometre downhill run to the line. Of the 176 men who started the race in Noirmoutier 17 days ago, 149 rolled out of Carcassonne this morning. And they rolled right into an old-fashioned Tour de France farmers' protest, hay bales and all. That didn't slow the peloton much, but first Bahrain Merida's Heinrich Hausler and then other riders began to show signs of having been sprayed with something, pouring water into their eyes and going back to the doctor's car for drops. That put a more sinister complexion on the protest, until we looked back at the pictures and saw that it wasn't the demonstrators spraying the riders that caused the problem. It was a gendarme trying to spray the demonstrators, but unfortunately doing it into the wind, which carried the spray back into his own face and then into the faces of the riders behind him. In all, the race was halted for 11 minutes. The hiatus in the gendarme's career might be a bit longer. And once it restarted, there was a fight to get in the breakaway that didn't sort itself out until over 100 kilometres into the race. When it did, there were 47 men in it. Greg Van Avermaet, the best placed of them, 18 minutes down. And it's easier to mention the teams that weren't represented because there was only one, Sky. Peter Sagan wasn't one of the Bora riders in there, but it didn't matter. As soon as Christophe Laporte took the points at the intermediate sprint, it became impossible for Sagan to be caught in the green jersey race, so that is his, provided he makes it to Paris. Philippe Gilbert attacked off the front of the lead group after the sprint and went over the top of the Col de Porte d'Aspet on his own. Behind him, his teammate Julien Alaphilippe comfortably took the 3 points for second place, ahead of Warren Barguil to extend his lead in the mountains competition by a point. On the descent of the Porte d'Aspet, not far from the memorial to Fabio Casartelli, who died in a crash during the 1995 Tour, there was a heart-stopping moment when Gilbert lost control on a bend and went off the side over a wall. He emerged with not much visible damage though, and after being checked over by the medics, eventually got back on his bike. He was riding rather than racing from that point on, understandably, and slowly drifted back to the main field. At the top of the first category Col de Monte, Alaphilippe took the 10 points for first place and kept going, turning his initial surge towards the summit into a proper attack. That didn't last though, and as we join commentary on the final climb of the day, Robert Hesink and Domenico Pozzovivo are out front on their own. Adam Yates is in the group behind, and once again they are far enough ahead of the main field that we're going to have two races today.
Couple of kilometres into the final climb of the day, the Col du Portillon, and it's Robert Hesink right on the very front now. And he is attacked with Rudy Mollard. Further back down in the Valley Road, the peloton is yet to reach there. They're 9 minutes and 44 seconds down on the very front of the race, and their climb is a separate story altogether. Movistar's Daniele Bernati, as they are in Spain, fittingly and appropriately, the Italian riding for a Spanish team heads it, and Movistar are showing their cards pretty early here. Will they do anything with it? Can Landa and Quintana attack the race when they get to this climb? We'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, what is still quite a substantial breakaway group have control of the front, and Hesink is looking like a man who has really rediscovered his form deep into this Tour de France. Another good showing from Yates as well, who's looking pretty good on the front of this group of chasers.
Yeah, Yates just wound it up there, but surprisingly it wasn't game-changing, if you like. I thought if he was going to show any cards, it would be an explosive move across. And now look, he's just carrying on to do this subtle slide away. Like no one's going. Now he's going to go. Look at that. Now that's, you don't let a ride like that get a gap, because that's what happens. Now Alaphilippe again playing an intelligent game, just sort of hiding himself, keeping away. And this is what he did at stage he won. We thought he was kind of out of the picture, and we see him repeatedly do it. He sits there and waits and chooses a very key moment and makes one big move.
Robert Hesink is not always the most elegant rider, always looks like he's suffering, but puts tremendous power through those pedals. Domenico Pozzovivo, who rode a very strong Giro d'Italia and has got that race in his legs, in his thick-set legs for a climber, is looking sharp though, able to live with all these micro accelerations from the big Dutchman. Where's Yates though? We haven't quite seen him latch on. I wonder if Yates has just stalled his attack. No, he's drawn Izagirre with him.
He's exploding it behind now, so he's got Izagirre with him, and he's now not letting out. See, this is why you can't let a rider like Yates get a gap, because once he puts the foot on the pedal, then very few people can go with him. Izagirre only, but he's dragging out the best, and now Alaphilippe reacts exactly. So he waits until he sees the move that's going to work, and then he goes. Well, Movistar, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. They've still got Valverde moving up now. They've got Mikel Landa. Let's just look behind. So Hessink is doing a great ride here. He really is, forcing a Bauke Mollema now, the one bridging across. Alaphilippe looking worryingly comfortable there, just pegging people back, sitting there, waiting until he makes his next move.
Doesn't want to let that gap get too big, though, does he? Hessink is really setting a good pace there, and it's excellent that Mollema has managed to respond as well. At the moment, Pozzovivo's not contributing to the pace setting. For so many years, he was in the colours of Étoile Mondiale, always in a support role, mostly for Romain Bardet latterly. But at Paris Merida, he seems to have really rediscovered his form, and, well, he hasn't been this close, potentially, to a stage victory.
No, Adam Yates exploding, so Adam Yates exploding out of there. So now again, they realise that it's only just there. So there's no big moves being made yet. Izagirre once again, he's just decided he's going to mark Adam Yates, which isn't a bad decision. Yeah,
and they were reacting in turn to a move by Jelle van den Dert, who drew one other rider clear. And now Guillaume Martin is attacking Pierre Latour, so fair play to him. Not seeing him able to do that, perhaps sensing a little bit of weakness in the Étoile Mondiale man in the white jersey competition. That's one of the subplots to watch out for. But these three still have the front of the race by about 10 seconds, as the peloton very shortly, or now, around about now, will be on the foot of the climb themselves. In fact, here they come on the approach now. Big drag race, and Movistar really putting it all down and putting it into this. Imanol Erviti. And they're all there. Where's Quintana and Landa? They're
Landa's on the wheel of Valverde there. Now Valverde's trying to decide what to do because he's left himself a little bit isolated. This is the problem when you don't have enough strong teammates. Their teammate is Soler, who's up the road, who would have been useful now. But they don't want to use Valverde immediately because that's going to leave them a little bit exposed too far down the climb.
Edward Turns is the Sunweb rider who was in the original breakaway, and he understandably is sitting up. Simon Gerrans just slipping off the pace for BMC. And at the front, it's still Hessink, still out of the saddle. Two completely contrasting physiques and styles, and Mollema as well. Well, by now we're familiar with his bobbing action on a bike. Quite similar, actually, to Pierre Latour in the white jersey. But Julien Alaphilippe is either playing it cool and about to do something amazing, or potentially he is beginning to misread the situation, and it might be just getting away from him. Is it now or never for Alaphilippe if he's going to win the stage? That's where we are, the High Pyrenees, the first of 3 days of climbing with a sprinter stage thrown in for good measure in the middle. 4 days of racing, which will then lead us to an individual time trial, which will determine the outcome of this year's Tour de France. But we have a lot of racing to do before then. Julien Alaphilippe has got a job here to get across to a group of 6 riders containing Adam Yates, who have gone clear, and Jelle van den Dert trying to chase on and make that 7. He couldn't delay any longer, David. I think he felt that in the company of slightly off-colour Pierre Latour and Damiano Caruso, who's done a lot to get to this point in the race, he was just the wrong side of that split.
It's amazing how he rides, because a few minutes ago I'd have said it's all over, but he seems to, I mean, it's just, still now I can't tell. He waits so long. I think he's got this amazing explosive ability that allows him to just wait patiently, wait for the definitive move to go clear, and then go attack after it on his own. And he repeatedly does that, but he's given himself a massive task now to try and make it across to this.
Worth remembering, this, of course, isn't a summit finish. The game is not over when you get to the top of the climb in 3.6 kilometres. There's always the descent, and Alaphilippe, if he has a small gap to make up, can do it on the descent. But
he's making it across. This is incredible. I think this is the rider they all need to get rid of as well, because he's a sprinter.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, it's he's got a nitro button, and he does this. He's done this in the stage he won as well. You think it's all over, but it's not, and he's going to make it. He's targeted that. He's timed that to perfection. 3 kilometres to the top. All in his head is he needs to make it it across for the front riders here, even a little bit behind because he can catch them on the descent, and then he can beat them all in the sprint.
But this is the moment, isn't it? Just when he's going to get on, because even Alaphilippe will be right on the limit now. If someone can go, if someone's got the legs to attack off this group with 3.5k to go, wouldn't be a bad time to go to get rid of Alaphilippe.
Exactly, but the speed he's come across that at, I don't think that would make a difference. I mean, yeah, he's gone deep, and as you say, if somebody went now, he needs a little bit of respite now, because he does use that nitro button, goes completely into oxygen debt. Now he needs to recover. Now, if Adam Yates,
I'm thinking Yates
would go now, he's going to give Alaphilippe a task.
Well, they're beginning to use up Jonathan Castroviejo's gone about a kilometre into that climb, but he is now exposing Wout Poels and Egan Bernal as the last domestiques for Thomas and Froome.
Wout Poels, for the first time, we're seeing him look good. Now,
there goes Yates goes. Hessink, just look how uncomfortable Robert Hessink looks. He almost looks like a puppet on the string there, just devoid of any core strength, but he's doing really well, Hessink. A great ride from him, and is he getting across to Yates, or will someone else have to come past Hessink if they want to close that gap?
So this is where Alaphilippe needs to recover a bit more. He's going to hope that the other rider's going to use up the other riders as if they're teammates. Look at the focus. He's just going to use those other riders to try and bridge it back a bit and then make his move at the last. But he's going to be in the red now for a bit. That's the problem. Adam Yates, no doubt, was told by Matty White what was going on. And the moment Alaphilippe made it back on, he knew he had to go.
Well, he's looking good, Adam Yates. He's looking as good, if not, well, he's looking better than we have seen him so far on the Tour de France. Obviously, he's not riding a GC race any longer. He freed himself up from that equation some time ago to hunt down stage wins, but he's not yet, up to this point, put himself in a position like he's got now, where he really is in with a chance if he can just make that advantage stick over the next 3 kilometres of climbing. Hessink, they're still allowing Hessink to set the pace, and
that's what Hessink does. I mean,
it's strong, isn't it?
Yeah, he knows where his ability lies, and his ability lies is just being able to find his rhythm and go. He doesn't ask anybody else to help, and it's the only thing he can do at the moment. Now look, it is the pressure that Hessink's putting on is affecting this. Pozzovivo now let's see what Alaphilippe can do. I think Alaphilippe will have to wait until about a K to go till he accelerates, and then hope to get as close he can to Yates and then try and get him on the descent. But there's a couple of things. Adam Yates is a brilliant descender. The road is dry, wet, which makes for some very dangerous descending and opens up, makes it even riskier than it's already going to be. And so Alaphilippe can't really hedge all his bets on the descent, which perhaps to a lesser descender he could have done.
Pozzovivo takes over, always seated, rarely out of his saddle, unlike Robert Hessink. Those powerful legs, that unusual physique for a climber. But Hessink now moves to the front again, and Adam Yates at the moment is riding away from all of them. They are not even around that bend now, and he's really found a rhythm, slightly lesser gradient at this point, and that looks like a gap that he is growing there that will be very hard for anyone to bridge, even Julien Alaphilippe.
Yeah, he's moving now. He's found his rhythm. We're seeing now Adam Yates at his best, and that's a perfectly timed move. Alaphilippe now realises the danger, and if he's going to stand a chance of winning this stage, then he's got to go after him himself. And look, he has dropped everyone else. It's just these two. So now we're seeing the strongest. But Alaphilippe now, he always does time these things well, but I think Adam Yates is just on a different level.
He's alone on the mountain, alone with his thoughts now. He doesn't have to worry about attacks or counter-attacks. Well, he has to worry about counter-attacks, but he can ride significantly at his own rhythm. Don't forget, he won a mountaintop finish at Saint-Gervais-Mont-Blanc in the Critérium du Dauphiné, the warm-up race for the Tour de France. Came here, everyone thinking, bang-on form and timing his season to perfection, just like his twin brother did, Simon, at the Giro d'Italia. Now, that GC race hasn't happened this year for Adam Yates, a man who finished 4th in the Tour de France 2 years ago. But on this form, you'd have to say, at this point in the climb, with 1.9k to go, and Alaphilippe now forced to try and ride across to him, this is a real opportunity for Yates to come away with something substantial from this year's Tour de France.
Yeah, 19 seconds now separating those first two groups of the Alaphilippe chasing group to Adam Yates. 19 seconds, it's pretty significant considering how close they are to the summit.
15k to go for the yellow jersey group, containing that clutch of Movistar riders who look like they're setting up something for an attack, but this man has attacked, and Adam Yates has got just over 1.5 kilometres of climbing before he hits the descent into Luchon. very strong riders that Adam Yates has just ridden away from at this point. Turning the pedals, measuring his effort, and he doesn't have to respond to anybody else because he's got the advantage now, and it's a 20-second gap that he's got over Bauke Mollema and 5 or 6 of the other best climbers in the world. Hats off to Bauke Mollema for his sheer consistency on this Tour de France. He is always there or thereabouts, seemingly.
Well, he is proving the pedigree he has. He is a GC racer, and so this is the sort of thing he should be able to. Granted, he's not at the sharp end of the GC, but he's showing all the attributes of a great GC racer, and so that must give him confidence, if nothing else. 26 seconds now, so it's ever going up. So we're seeing that he has found his rhythm, and it's consistently fast in the group behind. Doesn't matter if he looks behind, he's not going to see them. Not 26 seconds. Well,
the 26 that you have being fed through to you is actually, I think, possibly even bigger than that. The information we just had on our screen said 32 seconds as Alaphilippe realises this is slipping away from him, and he needs to dispense with everyone else.
1 kilometre to go. This is just like Dan Martin. It goes to show the sort of riders they are. They have that explosivity. They have that nitro button I was talking about before. And he knows how long he can do that effort for. So he's timed it to where he can peak it out to the summit, explode, and use the descent to recover.
So 2 very different climbs up the Côte de Portillon. One acceleration from Adam Yates blew him clear of the others. And since then, he's just held his own time trial rhythm. But Julien Alaphilippe has been stop, start, stop, start. And here he is in 2nd place on the mountain. And who knows? Who knows? He's still got 700 metres to catch Adam Yates, and even if he gets close to him within 10 seconds or so over the top of the climb, Alaphilippe would have a real chance of getting to Adam Yates on the descent. And then if those two go to the line together, I'm afraid for Adam Yates, it's likely that there's only one winner. So Yates has to carry on here and hold off Alaphilippe with as big a margin as he possibly can over the top of this climb.
Yeah, he's when you hear Alaphilippe coming on the radio, that's going to put the fear. We've got Astana go now.
It's Tanel Kangertz who's riding with Jakob Fuglsang there. So the first of the GC riders attacks from that group, but Team Sky will watch Fuglsang with relative ease. I don't think they'll be too worried about him. He starts in 9th place, 6 minutes 14 down on Geraint Thomas's yellow jersey. So nothing to worry about for Team Sky when Fuglsang attacks. There it is. Adam Yates will take an advantage over Julien Alaphilippe at the top of the climb. He'll also incidentally pick up 20 largely irrelevant King of the Mountains points. There are double points available in the King of the Mountains competition at this climb. And Ian Boswell now has Ilnur Zakarin. So Jakob Fuglsang has got Zakarin for company. So those two, it's no surprise to see a couple of GC riders getting together to try and get away from the rest. Alaphilippe then crossing the line somewhat 20 seconds, 18 seconds I'm hearing down on Adam Yates, and picking up 16 points, by the way, in the King of the Mountains competition. So he's really stretched out a huge advantage in that competition over Warren Barguil on the road today. But now he wants the stage win, and now he wants to reel in Adam Yates on the descent. 10 kilometres to the finish for those two.
Well, yellow jersey still has 3 teammates in front of him, and of course Chris Froome behind him. But look how this descent is going to be dangerous, because in those shaded patches the road's still wet. Now we know Adam Yates is a great descender. We've seen him do it before in San Sebastian in very similar situations. This is going to be a very evenly matched battle, and as I said, unfortunately for Alaphilippe, he is chasing somebody who can match him, I think, on the descent.
It is a technical descent, though, isn't it? And as you say, David, that nightmare combination of wet, dry, and dry patches, and then wet under the trees as the heavy downpour has given way to sun. But not all the road has dried out. And look at Alaphilippe go down this mountain.
Yeah, he's a bit mad. So
it would just, I mean, as if racing to victory on a descent like this isn't stressful enough for Adam Yates. The thought that this man is the one second on the road, and well, he's rider 101, isn't he? He's everyone's worst nightmare.
Yeah, he is. I mean, watching him go over the top of the climb, it looked like he lunged himself, and he was on his own getting points. So, I mean, it's.
All right, well, this is a major opportunity for Adam Yates. He's done everything he possibly could, and so too have his team, by the way. Tactically ridden this race to perfection, that long, complicated and very testing opening phase of today's race, to call back Impey and propel Yates into the right move at the right time. Don't forget, 47 men were in that big breakaway group, and Zakarin and Fuglsang, well, they get reeled back in by Wout Poels, and that's the end of that one. Frankly, they've been skied to death on that climb.
Well, Wout Poels is back. It's safe to say that. Normally, he's been out of the picture at this point in the race, so that's going to be a great relief. As we see here, Adam Yates is sprinting out of the corners, not taking anything for granted, even though normally 20 seconds at this point in the race with the roads to the finish, he'd be pretty much guaranteed, but he's not with Julien Alaphilippe in hot pursuit.
both these riders are reading these curves and the sinuous descent to perfection at the moment, and it looks as though he's eating into Yates's advantage. He might have, Adam Yates, lost about 4 seconds according to the information we've got since the top of the climb. But Yates is in with a real chance here of taking his first ever stage victory at the Tour de France. 7 kilometres remaining. Julien Alaphilippe battling down this gradient in his biggest gear, shaking the legs out as if saying, I'm ready for a sprint. But he's got to, in order to sprint, he's got to catch Adam Yates, who so far has done nothing wrong, David. Until this point, I spoke too soon. He's on the deck. The stress of the situation there. Let's see how it happened. Wet road, front wheel goes.
And that's it. That's the pressure. He's under that pressure. He knows who's coming. And are we going to see him? He's got a wheel change. Yeah, he's there. Oh, whoa. That's it. Come on.
Well,
I don't know if it's...
Is that a retrievable position? A shake of the head?
I'm not sure. Well, if he's got the right wheel change, if it's the right tyre, because he's going to be nervous, obviously, and he's going to have to go straight into a crazy descent with a wheel that's not using the tyres he's used to. I don't think the pressure that he's accustomed to might not even have the gears that he's used to. So there is something. But look, he's still in it, so he's not injured himself. The bike itself isn't damaged. It was just the wheel. Or not even, actually. It might have been... I don't think you had a wheel change. Maybe it was just the service was just there helping him get going again.
Well, it was the commentator's curse, and I apologise profusely for what I just said. But Adam Yates' recovery, I mean, that adrenaline that will be coursing through him now, surely he's got to use that to his advantage. But he only had about 14 seconds to get back on his bike, get a wheel and get on. And that's a phenomenal bit of work by the mechanic as well, to be fair.
Well, to be actually now thinking, I don't think, although the Mavic was there, I don't think he had a wheel change.
Can't have taken a wheel change, yeah.
Alaphilippe even shaking his head slightly like a poor guy. This is competition is just falling everywhere. Barguil crashed earlier, we didn't see that. Then Adam Yates is the pressure. It's almost like he's waiting for him.
Can't be, can he?
Surely not.
Well, I mean, that would be the least Alaphilippe thing.
Yeah, he is.
Although, well, he's looking around to see what's going on with Yates.
Down.
Again, he looks. 5 kilometres to go.
There was a genuine pause there, kind of just wondering. But yeah,
he's got a gap, whatever, hasn't he?
And he's also perhaps he's so convinced he'll beat him in the sprint. But now Adam Yates has let go.
Yeah. So Julien Alaphilippe there momentarily just almost confused by what had happened to Adam Yates and unsure in his own mind of how to play this. But it looks as though Adam Yates has just let him go and will be nursing his wounds to the finish line. Bleeding from the elbow, battered, bruised, and it looks beaten to me, Adam Yates. To recover from that heavy crash, and especially when you're up against a man like this, would be superhuman. And Julien Alaphilippe in the polka dot jersey is just having one of those days again. So much confidence. He seems to be growing in confidence, David. We've seen it repeatedly, this pattern of playing it so cool on those climbs, allowing huge gaps to go, safe in the confidence in his own ability, as Adam Yates understandably takes that wet corner very gingerly. Julien Alaphilippe just seems so like he's having a golden summer.
He is, and it happens to riders. And we saw it happen to Warren Barguil last year in the Tour de France, and this time it's Alaphilippe's, and he's due it. He's been knocking on the door for a while now, and we're seeing, and he's a very exciting racer. We see the way he races, and he's just so twitchy. Even in this moment, he's on the radio all the time. He's looking behind. It's almost like he doesn't want to crash now. He's actually being quite rational here. He keeps an eye on what's going on, just wants to know what the race situation is. So he took maximal risks trying to catch Yates, and in the process piled the pressure on so much that Yates made a mistake. And that's where you have to race, and so that's a little bit like motor racing in a descent, where sometimes you've just got to pile the pressure on.
The third place rider on the road is Gorka Izagirre, and he's nearly up to the back wheel of Adam Yates, and might well be passing him, and you might see Yates relegated to third, if not worse, before the end of this stage. But there's no doubt about the winner. This is a ride of coronation over the next 3.4 kilometres.
And also in the climber's jersey, because he's just got a big lead, and he increases lead ever more on Warren Barguil.
Everything is benign and calm. Is it? Just looking at Geschke and Dumoulin, not positioning him for an attack on the descent, surely, but just to get to the front is the safest place to be. Exactly.
They're just positioning him at the very front to make sure, because we've seen this descent. They'll have heard on the radio of what's happened to Adam Yates. These things get relayed, and so they'll be aware that even at the front of the race, accidents are being are happening, and for that reason you want to be right at the very front. Oh, look at the speed he's going there. Yeah, he's back, he's taking risks.
Well, he has now got a rider in Dorka Izagirre who is still racing,
Yeah.
and he's not that far behind, so he can't afford just to coast home. There's Izagirre and Yates, and they are in turn being caught by Bauke Mollema and Domenico Pozzovivo. The best placed that Adam Yates has ever finished on a stage of the Tour de France is both in 2015 and in 2017, 16 I should say, where he finished 7th in both those races on stages. He's never finished better than that, interestingly, on a stage of the Tour de France. Now, hopefully for him, he'll at least break that and put that to bed, but it'll be a scant consolation because he was so well placed until it all went wrong for him on the climb to take the victory. But take nothing away from this man's race. It's just been perfect once again.
I don't think he can believe it. It's like, just shook his head there. It's his tactics played off it. I mean, if Adam Yates hadn't crashed and he finished second, he'd have been disappointed that perhaps he'd play his tactics of playing games and racing from behind. That's what he tends to do. So lets people get in front, then chases them back up. Mikel Landa now moving. But it's too late, too little too late. Mess is going to try and push it on the descent.
We'll keep an eye on that, but in the meantime, I think it's right that we celebrate a Frenchman in the polka dot jersey back in France. We've crossed it back into France, into Luchon, taking the red kite and taking the applause of this crowd. He was many people's favourite to take the stage win today. It's one thing being people's favourite, but actually executing it in the cold-blooded way in which he did after the most stressful opening 100 kilometres, where he had to repeatedly respond to attacks, launch attacks of his own to place himself in, find that final big breakaway of the day, and then to whittle it down, make the selection, read the race to perfection, know when to wait, know when to hold, have the patience and self-confidence to deliver the big effort when it mattered. Well, Julien Alaphilippe has never been on form like this, and he is having the summer of his life, shaking out those sprinter's legs on that climber's frame that suggests he might even want to have a little sprint against himself. He's just loving it, exhorting the crowds to cheer him home. He is rapidly becoming the poster boy of French cycling, replacing on this edition of the Tour de France and eclipsing the achievements of Warren Barguil and Romain Bardet to date, and making a name for himself. One image will be all over, I am sure, the front page of all the local and national papers tomorrow, and it is this image that you're looking at. Alaphilippe riding to his second victory after the Alps. It's the Pyrenees for the unstoppable Julien Alaphilippe.
An amazing win. It's well deserved. Izagirre bringing, look, Adam Yates still going, he went down hard.
Massively important for Yates that he holds on to this third place and that Mollema doesn't get around him, I think, just for his own sense of completion on this journey. Izagirre in second, Yates in third, holds on to a podium spot. Bauke Mollema in fourth, tiny little gap then to Domenico Pozzovivo from Bari Merida, and that'll score a few points, incidentally, in the team classification. The admirable, the honourable, the popular Robert Hessink crosses the line some 37 seconds after Julien Alaphilippe, who still has a chance at that white jersey. The delight is self-evident. The Quick-Step Floor story for 2018 just rumbles on and on and on. Dumoulin and Bardet are in that group of the two co-leaders of Team Sky, whatever we're going to call them. The yellow jersey of Thomas is the most eye-catching of them all, of course. And then comes Quintana, tiny gap to Quintana, and then the pairing of Roglic and Kruijswijk. So all the big hitters are here.
But once again, Team Sky in complete control. It's dominant. As Egan Bernal himself coming up now to... This is interesting. People should take note that Egan Bernal, he's not just a climber, he's a brilliant descender. And from what I hear in the peloton, he's excellent at looking after himself. So he kind of broke the mould with Egan Bernal, because normally you'd expect these pure climbers to have these failings in other places which they then have to learn season in, season out. But Bernal seems to be a natural everywhere.
He's a time trialling talent as well, David. So that's the full package, isn't it? That's a Grand Tour winner in the making.
It's quite good. He's just gone and taken the lead himself. Could have just left it, but now he's having to slow down. He's probably getting reprimanded stuff. He's like, yeah, come on, don't get too carried away. We've got control of this.
But he will be a different man already, Egan Bernal, from the callow youth that took to the start line of his first Grand Tour. You know, we're deep into the third week now, and he will have learned so much, and he will be so full of confidence in his own racing that I'm sure he's as I say, a different rider from the one he was 2.5 weeks ago.
Which is terrifying to think of. I mean, this is the the ultimate apprenticeship. It's coming at your first Tour de France into the #1 team who have got first and second on GC, and you're their last domestique. I mean, there's no quicker way of learning the ropes, and there's no reason why he can't be going in with leadership next year to the Tour de France.
Warren Barguil, another rider who fell. We didn't see his fall, but just look at the state of his jersey and the blood on his elbow. He crosses with Christian Dudashek from UAE Team Emirates, and just a tiny gap behind Julien Bernard of Trek Segafredo. And Sky, having wrestled control for 100 kilometres, reassert themselves now. Over the top of the last climb, on the descent, trouble-free, smooth progress from the Sky train. Love them or like them less, they are brilliant at what they do, and today was another exhibition. They didn't panic. They are one man down, don't forget, going into today in the absence of Gianni Moscon, but those men who matter have done the job allotted to them, whether it's Jonathan Castroviejo, Wout Poels, or before them even Luke Rowe, and now the experience of Michal Kwiatkowski as he moves to the front with the brilliant, enticing prospect of Egan Bernal, and behind them the four-time winner of the Tour de France, Chris Froome, and this extraordinary ride, this extraordinary July in the yellow jersey for Geraint Thomas. It continues in the sunshine. The predicted rainstorms have stayed away. The drama has stayed away from stage 16, ultimately, for Team Sky. And it's as you were. Chris Froome, Geraint Thomas, the leader of the Tour de France by 1 minute and 39 going into the race today, will finish stage 16 with a lead of 1 minute and 39 seconds. All the top 10 of the general classification of the Tour de France are here, and still those three are locked together. Dumoulin looking ominously strong, ominously confident, and as if tomorrow he might just try something. Chris Froome, it's less certain what it holds in store over the next couple of days for him, but Geraint Thomas, again, no sign of weakness. That yellow jersey is looking every inch the fitting costume for this man, this Welshman, who is riding into the race of his life in July. And it is very, very close now. The big tests, of course, are still to come, the individual time trial. But now there are only 2 more stages in the Pyrenees that spell danger for Geraint Thomas, because 30% of the racing in this mountain range is now done. And Geraint Thomas and Paris are just getting that little bit closer. Julien Alaphilippe, though, the comfortable, charismatic and brilliant winner. That's a brace of victories for the brilliant Frenchman. This time, though, he did it in the polka dot jersey in Luchon.
Today I have no word again. It was really, really hard to be in the front. I was happy to be in a good group with Philippe, and unfortunately he crashed. So I tried to do my best as possible for the victory. And I saw also Yates crash in the downhill. When I attacked behind him, I tried to wait him because it's never nice to crash, you know. But yes, he was maybe scared after the crash, and my sport director tell me that I have to continue my effort, because I did really a strong effort to try to come back to Simon Yates. Adam Yates, sorry, I always don't remember, but yes, I hope he's okay, and I wish also a good recovery for Phil, because I saw on the video the crash was not so nice.
And it could have been a lot less nice. When we saw Gilbert go over the wall, we hoped he was heading for a landing on a mossy forest floor. When you see the rocks that were actually down there, it's astonishing he wasn't more badly hurt. He came in 31 minutes down, limped onto the podium to receive the Combativité prize, and even hung around to accommodate French television with blood oozing through the bandages on his leg before heading to hospital and out of the race. Adam Yates' crash was less serious, except for his chances of winning the stage. And after the collapsing kilometre banner that deprived him in 2016, he's still looking for his first Tour win.
Yeah, one of them things. I've took more risk on more technical descent before and never had any problems, so it's one of them things. You know, we kind of all these stages, and you never know what's coming up on some of these corners. And it was a bit damp or something, and it just came down. That's all there is to it.
And physically, you don't have any bad injuries?
No, just bad morale. Morale's pretty damaged right now. You know, when you come so close to winning the stage of the Tour, it's pretty devastating, not just for me, but for the team. We've been working for a while now, for a few stages, trying to do something. And yeah, when you come that close, it's disappointing.
Right, from the racing incidents to the big non-racing one. The farmers' protest didn't manage to disrupt the race. The gendarmes' attempt to deal with it did.
Just to the left, they looked like arresting some of the people. They used pepper spray to get the protesters under control, and unfortunately that blew across the road as we came past, obviously completely unintentionally, but yeah, all the bunch copped the pepper spray that was in the air. The race directors handled it really well, stopped the race immediately. Everyone got water and whatnot, and they told us that within 20 minutes any effects will wear off. And I can't thank the organisers, the ASO, enough for how they handled the situation.
Tear gas and crashing teammates aside, it was a great day for Julien Alaphilippe. Not just his second stage win, but an increased lead in the King of the Mountains competition. There's the result: Alaphilippe from Gorka Izagirre, Adam Yates and the remains of the day's breakaway group. The more important result for the race overall is that there was no race, and Geraint Thomas has now worn the yellow jersey for more stages than there are left to take it off him. There's the top 10. I'm sure you're all familiar with it by now, so I won't bore you with the time gaps. The good news for Thomas is that there are now only 2 days left in the mountains and the time trial for Tom Dumoulin or anyone else to try to overtake him.
Well, it was not really the moment or the day to go for an all-out attack already. I think it's more for tomorrow. And of course, I would have loved to take some time, but if it's not possible, it's not possible. I cannot force it by myself to drop Thomas by a minute on a stage like this. Everybody's hoping for a crazy move or whatever, but at the moment, I need to keep my gunpowder dry and wait for the right moment. I knew that the downhill wasn't really tricky. Yeah, well, it was not the day to go for an all-out attack.
Tomorrow's the sort of stage that no one's ever ridden before in Angers, 65 kilometres and a colossal final climb. What do you make of it? I guess you know it very, very well. You'll have studied it and known exactly how you ride it. No, I'm sure you won't. But what do you make of it, G?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tough. Probably a good 2 hours of climbing, so you don't want to get too carried away at the start. For sure, there'll be attacks at the start, so it's going to take a gutsy ride for someone in the top 10. If they go, then it's going to be a big day out for them. So because it's not just the length of the last climb, but it's steep all the way. Plus, it finishes like around, I think, 2,300 meters at altitude. So it makes a big difference at that height. So yeah, we'll see.